Let's rise above sectarianism, get beyond the Sufi-Salafi debates.
The most ignorant members of our community.
Why is it that some Muslims feel justified in killing their fellow citizens?
It's dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy. And it's not helpful for the Muslim community. We have to pinpoint where the problem is, where the cancer is. And it is this type of Islam, this puritanical Islam, which is the problem here.
In fact, all terrorist attacks so far that have occurred in America and in the UK have been because, due to the terrorists themselves making statements saying because of our foreign policy over there. So
the only reason we have killed this man today is because Muslims are dying daily by British soldiers.
Dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy.
Because Britain is in very real, clear and present danger from terrorism, both from within and from without. But only a fool or a knave would seek to separate British foreign policy from that danger of terrorism.
Dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy.
In my opinion, it's injustice, humiliation, oppression that are the most common causes of terrorism.
And I'm telling you, we've got nutcases, unfortunately, in our religion. But we're a large religion, and it's just statistical fact that when you have large numbers of people, you will have people that aren't well. You'll have people that are not well, and then if you compound that with bombing those people, with aggressing against those people, then unfortunately people are going to get upset.
Dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy.
Only an idiot could imagine that, as Ken Livingstone just pointed out in that report, that if you go around the world invading and occupying other people's countries, that you're not going to generate a real danger to yourself, blowback, as Ken called it.
Dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy. Dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy.
Trying to say is our policies have a reaction. Michael-Stewart, the head of the Bin Laden unit, the man who tasked to track down and kill Bin Laden, wrote a book called Marching Towards Hell, and in it he clearly says that groups like Al-Qaeda are only exist and their only aim is to stop our foreign policy. So, you know, this isn't me, this isn't us, a crazy Muslim guy. These are experts. You had a very articulate ambassador prior, all saying the same thing.
I mean, IS is a product of a political reality, not an ancient religion, and it's IS is a product of a political reality, not an ancient religion, and it's quite clear that when you look at the profile of many of the young men who head out there, they are what one report refers to as religious novices. If you look at the 2 books that were ordered by the 2 Brummies recently who were convicted, they were Islam for Dummies and the Quran for Dummies. Quite clearly, these young men are not religiously literate. So
where the problem is, where the cancer is. And it is this type of Islam, this puritanical Islam, which is the problem here. One can trace back violent extremism to what I would call toxic theology.
The kind of terrorism that we're seeing today, I believe, is often a response to oppression. People are responding to feeling being oppressed, and one of the things people do when they get oppressed is they feel closed down. At some point, you get this explosion, this boiling over of anger, feelings of injustice, feelings of being not part of the larger group, and they act out. And since they can't defeat it by itself, they oftentimes use terrorist acts.
They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there.
Because we're over there. Then you added this on Tuesday. But Al-Qaeda has determination. The determination comes from being provoked.
Why are they doing it then?
Well, first of all, I think Shiraz pointed out quite rightly that the Syrian conflict cannot be underestimated in terms of the motivation here. There are a lot of young people who feel extremely frustrated by the Syrian conflict, by the hundreds and thousands of people who are being killed there, and the impotence that many people feel. If you combine that with a situation in which a number of young people in this country feel politically disenfranchised, marginalized.
So terrorism's a real thing, and if you want to deal with it, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One way is to stop your own terrorism.
Dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy where the problem is, where the cancer is. And it is this type of Islam, this puritanical Islam, which is the problem here.
Terrorism is a form of violence, much like cancer, in that it comes in many, many different forms. And we know we have lung cancers, we have blood cancers, we have skin cancers, and they're not all caused by the same things, and they don't affect the same individuals the same way. So why would we think, if all cancer doesn't have a single cause, why would we think terrorism has a single cause? Well, I don't. And so I studied the most virulent form of terrorism, suicide terrorism. Suicide terrorism kills more people than any other form of terrorism, much like lung cancer kills more people than any other form of cancer. And suicide terrorism also has a specific risk factor associated with it, much like lung cancer. In case of lung cancer, it's smoking. In the case of suicide terrorism, it's foreign occupation. Foreign occupation, more than religion, more than poverty, more than any other cause, is the leading risk factor in producing suicide terrorism.
We are up against a well-funded machine that has a louder voice, and unfortunately the most ignorant members of our community have the loudest voices.
Some people claim that religion motivates terrorists. However, the academic research of Dr. Robert Pape has proved the claim to be false.
What I did is I collected the first complete database of every suicide terrorist attack around the world since 1980. It's happened since Iraq. And what the data shows quite clearly is that the principal cause of suicide terrorism is foreign occupation.
Dishonest and dangerous to blame foreign policy.
In that period from 1980 to 2003, there were 315 completed suicide terrorist attacks by 462 suicide terrorists who actually killed themselves. I don't mean attempts. These are people who actually killed themselves. The world leader during that 24-year period was not an Islamic group at all. They're the Tamil Tigers.
It is this type of Islam, this puritanical Islam, which is the problem here.
In Sri Lanka, the Tamil Tigers are a Marxist group, a secular group, a Hindu group. In fact, over half of those 462 suicide attackers were purely secular. Because you see, many Muslim suicide terrorist groups are also purely secular, such as the PKK in Turkey.
Where the problem is, where the cancer is. And it is this type of Islam, this puritanical Islam, which is the problem here.
The PKK in Turkey, which did numerous suicide attacks in the 1990s, is again a Marxist, read anti-religious suicide terrorist group.
Are some facts that Bill seems to love. When you hear them, it's going to blow your mind a bit because the way you're told stories doesn't incorporate this information. Did you know that only 2% of all terrorist attacks were committed by Islamic groups or individuals? Like, I can't get my head around that because I can't think what the other 98% are because I never hear those stories about Buddhist or Christian attacks.
Let's rise above sectarianism, get beyond the Sufi-Salafi debates, get beyond the Sunni-Shia debates. They're not going to be resolved in our lifetime.
My point being, to get this what we have, America has a certain agenda. That agenda will not rub the Muslim populations too positively. So there will be repercussions. Those repercussions we have seen and we continue to see. Radicalism, as we all know as Muslim community, doesn't come because the Quran tells you to be radical. Radicalism comes because of political grievances. And those political grievances are pretty obvious when you look at them. You don't need to be an expert in the Quran to understand the political grievances of the peoples that are attacking back. So, article in a German magazine, Der Spiegel. Der Spiegel is like the CNN, even better, this like BBC, which is neutral. It's the most prestigious magazine of Germany. And Der Spiegel acquired a treasure trove of documents from ISIS, from IS. And long story how they got it, but basically accidentally one of the leaders of ISIS was captured and killed in a raid, and his entire house was basically handed over. And long story, so Der Spiegel got documents of this. Now, this is all online. You can Google the article. It's all a very beautiful, very well written, very analytical article. And it turns out, and I want everybody here to go tell, especially those young sympathizers and whatnot, who are thinking that ISIS and whatnot is doing something positive and is doing some khair. It turns out that some of the main leaders of ISIS are actually ex-members of Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist, socialist, atheistic party. And this explains so much, because how do you explain the success of running an entire country, of the intelligence that they have, of the management, of the division of ministries, of people that have had no experience whatsoever? The fact of the matter is that the very people who were Islam's worst enemies, every one of you who was an adult in the 80s knows the Ba'athist party. You know how they would kill people just for praying Fajr in the masjid. They would take you away and torture you because they were scared of religion. Now that what has happened, the Ba'athist members that remain have in effect created this platform called ISIS.